Yes. Hello, Marjorie. I see you over here on YouTube. I'm going to flip over now, and now we will begin to read this lecture by Neville Goddard, Proof the Law Works, from April the 5th, 1971. Mhm. This should prove to be a very interesting lecture tonight. Let us begin. Paul, in his letter to the Galatians, said, I see that you observe days and months and seasons and years. I am afraid I have labored over you in vain. Now here we are, this crowded week of observing these different days, and this is the season, and naturally, it is the year. What did Paul give to the world? What he gave to the world is this, that the Spirit of God and the human imagination are one. He said, We did not receive the spirit of the world, but the Spirit which is from God, that we may understand the gifts bestowed upon us by God. Here's the one that became the many, that the many may become the one. For one must be all, and comprehend within himself all things, both small and great. Blake from the Four Zoas. Everything in the world, all that I behold, though it appears without, it is within my imagination, of which this world of mortality is but a shadow. William Blake from Jerusalem. So we are told that if I be lifted up, I will lift all men and draw all men unto me. Now we are told he is lifted up. Therefore, all men are already redeemed, but they have to experience it within themselves. They are already redeemed. But in this world of mortality, this must be now. I would say repeated within the individual, for he must contain and experience all within himself. There is only God in this world. God only acts and is in existing beings or men. Blake, from the Marriage of Heaven and Hell. Now, let me share with you a story that was given to me last Friday night. This lady's husband's name is Ray. When I use the word Ray, I am speaking of her husband. She said, last year, Ray said to me, it's going to cost us $1,000 to put on a new roof. We need the roof, but it will cost $1,000. She didn't say they could not afford it. She said, I saw the new roof right then and there. I saw the new roof. Then she said, I was working at my sewing machine. It's an old one, but it was adequate. It did the job. But I would like a new one, she said. And so I imagined a new one. Here's the old one, but I imagined a new one. Then I was putting away my tape recorder and I felt, how heavy this thing is. I would like a new lightweight one. I put the old one away, the heavy one, but I thought I would like a new one that is light of weight. So I put away the new one that was light of weight. Hear what she did? Instead of putting away the heavy, she put away the light that she did not quite have. Then she said, Ray said to me, my new shoes hurt. He had just bought them and they were hurting. Well, I wanted him to have shoes that did not hurt. I did that in my imagination. All of this was last year. Then came the turn of the calendar year, and we had a robbery. No, they didn't steal the roof, but they took the other more valuable objects. And this past week, I got a settlement from the insurance company for $2,050 odd. I now have my nice new sewing machine. I have my nice lightweight tape recorder. Ray's shoes do not hurt. and there is money for the roof, with much, much left over. Now, who instigated the robbery? Now, on Friday, you will hear, if you go to the service, the 7 words of the cross. 3 taken from Luke, 3 from John, and 1 from Matthew and Mark. It's the same one from Matthew and Mark, which is the 4th one. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? That is the one taken from these 2 Gospels. But the first one used on the cross is from Luke. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Everything is moving under compulsion. No one sees the invisible causation. No one sees the invisible imaginal act that is putting pressure upon everyone who is bent in a certain direction to perform the needed act, to produce the imaginal act that is completely unseen in the world. Here, every natural effect has a spiritual cause and not a natural. A natural cause only seems. It is a delusion of the fading vegetable memory. Blake from Milton. Now, in her letter to me, she said, these things I remember. They were all last year, but I remember them. In her case, she is blessed that she can remember when Ray said to her, it's going to cost $1,000 to put on the new roof. And I saw the new roof, even though at the moment he thought he could not afford a new roof. When I used my sewing machine, it was adequate. It was good. It did the job, but I would like a new one. And I saw a new one. And when I put away my tape recorder, it was all right. It was adequate. But it was heavy when I put it away. I thought, I've seen all these nice new lightweight ones, and I would like a nice lightweight one, a good one. Now, she said, I have all of them. I have my nice new lightweight recorder, my new machine, Ray's shoes that do not hurt, and the roof will be a new one. The money is there and much left over. So, the first cry of the cross, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. They are all asleep, moving under compulsion. And men and women unwittingly, most of them, some wittingly, are setting the whole thing in motion. And they simply move. So someone given to the feeling of getting something for nothing, he takes the recorder. If he sells it for anything, that's profit. It cost him nothing. No matter what it cost her, whatever he could get for it was sheer profit. If he goes out and finds something that he stole and he could move it quickly for $15 and one gets a bargain, he made $15. It cost him nothing. His investment was nothing. And there are those in the world who think that way. They are passing through the furnaces. So the first word on the cross, a word on the cross does not mean a single word. It's a completed thought. So the shortest word is, I thirst. But there are 2 words. The next one from John is, it is finished. There are 3 words. All right, still it is 1 word when you take the 7 words. So the first word is from Luke. Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. And then comes Luke's second. Then comes John's first. Then comes Matthew and Mark. Then come 2 from John, and then Luke completes it. Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit. This little punctuation mark has been pushed around in the second word on the cross, which is from Luke. And the thief turns to him and asks him to have mercy on him. And he said, behold, I say unto you, today thou shalt be with me in paradise. When you can alter the punctuation and put the comma after today, but no, leave it just as it is. Behold, I say unto you, today thou shalt be with me in paradise. This is now resurrection. And when I am lifted up, I will draw all men unto me. For all things are in my own wonderful human imagination, and I am all imagination. So when I am lifted up, I draw all. At the very moment, I draw them all with me. But they individually must have the experience that I have had. But they are already redeemed because I took them up with me. Because all things exist in the human imagination, and only one who is resurrected. But he cannot be resurrected and leave behind him any part of himself. So the whole world is raised up with him. I am telling you from experience. The heavenly chorus sings when this thing takes place. They sing the fall, the actual fall into division, and the resurrection into unity. They sing it out. And then the regeneration through resurrection from the dead. They actually sing it out, and the words, it is finished. I heard it, but I didn't sing it. The heavenly chorus sang it. When I walked by, and everyone was made perfect because I was perfect. And then at the very end, the chorus sang out, it is finished. That was the sixth word of the cross. And the last one is when this garment comes off. And that is the 31st Psalm, the 5th verse. Into thy hands I commit my spirit. Complete the verse. Thou hast redeemed me, O Lord, faithful God. That was the promise in the beginning. I would fall into division and become fragmented, dwelling in all, that not a thing in this world could be apart from me, because how could I be apart from something that I am going to influence? Because all things by a law divine, in one another's being mingled. If I am not penetrating you now, I couldn't see you. You couldn't hear me if I did not penetrate you and you penetrate me. So all things by a law divine in one another's being mingle. So when I am lifted up, I take with me my entire universe, my whole vast world, knowing that everyone that is now shattered in that world will have a repetition of the same experience. For one fell into division and then resurrected into unity, bringing all back together into the one. So in her case, I can tell you how thankful I am that she shared it with me, that she could now actually feel that the robbery, which seemed at the moment such a shock, she lost the tape recorder, she lost this, all the movable objects, and then came the settlement from the insurance company for $2,050 odd, which replaced these with the new ones, all the light ones, and enough to put on a new roof, and then still some left over. So, Father, forgive them. Yes, the thieves are thieves. It's yourself pushed out anyway. Here's someone tonight is accused for stealing maybe what? A little cup or a saucer, and yet the bank where I bank, the United California Bank, they're still looking for the internal thieves who stole $50 million last year from their subsidiary in Basel in Switzerland. $50 million. And they know it's all on the inside. It can only be on the inside by trusted employees. They think they can bring it down to six trusted employees. They can't quite put their fingers on it because in Switzerland, and they have all these strange hidden accounts, but they are missing $50 million. So when something goes into the bank and holds it up, so when someone goes into the bank and holds it up and gets $1,000 and we balloon the whole thing, the other thing is hush hush. Here in a bank in Illinois a few months ago that lost close to $7 million, and they still can't quite put their finger on how it happened on the inside. No one came in and robbed them. And we speak of the little shoplifting on the outside, and the poor little girl goes off to jail, or the little boy goes off to jail. I'm not condoning it. If you could stop the embezzlement from the outside, your dividends would jump from their present little 3% or 4% to 20%. If you could only stop it from the inside. All things happen really in the true sense of the word from the inside. So every so-called act in the outer world that seems a cause in itself, may I tell you, every natural effect has a spiritual, imaginal cause and not a natural cause. A natural cause only seems. It's a delusion of what? The fading memory. Man can't quite remember. Well, luckily she remembered when Ray said we could use and need a new roof, but it would cost $1,000. And so that is put into the future. She remembered when he complained the new shoes were hurting. In her mind's eye, she revised it instantly, at the moment. The roof and the shoes. When she worked on her machine, she revised it. It was adequate, but she said, I have a new machine, a new sewing machine. And putting the heavy tape recorder away, she wanted a new one that was light of weight, and she revised it. And she got in her mind's eye a lightweight new tape recorder. Then she goes home one day to find the house had been robbed. She had carried insurance, so she brought in the insurance people. And here they paid her the $2,000, which replaced all these things in a new way. So I tell you, the story is the greatest story ever told. There's no story like it. But Christianity needs forever and forever to be saved from secular history. It is not secular history. It is the history of your own wonderful human imagination. God and your imagination are one. They are. You are an immortal being. You cannot die because you are all imagination. When you actually know it from experience, then you can wipe your tears. Nothing can pass away. You may not see them with the mortal eye, touch them with the mortal hand, but they are in a world just as real as this, just as real, continuing the journey until they reach that moment in time when they are resurrected, and then the scattered body begins to be collected, and they are gathered together into one. So one must be all, and comprehend within himself all things both great and small. And you are that one that actually fell. And then in falling, you became fragmented. You became divided into the unnumbered parts. And each seems to be independent of you as you look out on it. You are only looking out on yourself pushed out. And your whole vast world must make real your unknowing imaginal acts or your knowing imaginal acts. I ask you to trust this teaching because in your imaginal acts or believe in your imaginal acts, you may not see it tonight or tomorrow, but Believe in it. Actually assume the most glorious thing in the world for yourself or any aspect of yourself. Trust it. And that imaginal act, if it takes 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 of your projected selves, you will use them to make that thing become real in your world. As she said in her letter to me, you may call it imagination, or some may call it thought. But this I do know. Having remembered what I did last year, I can say it does produce reality. And I've told you time and time again that imagining creates reality, that all the objective facts in the world are produced through imagination. There isn't a thing that you can name in this world that wasn't first imagined, but you can veto it in the minute you imagine it. You can say, as she could have said, we can't afford it, and stop it. She didn't say, we can't afford the $1,000 for the roof. She saw the roof and it was new, but she didn't see the robbery. That's the means. Let us turn you now to the 55th chapter of Isaiah. My ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts than yours. This is the chapter where you are told, my word shall not return unto me void, but it must accomplish that which I purpose and prosper in the thing for which I sent it. So my ways are higher than your ways. Don't concern yourself with how it's going to be done. For the same voice who spoke these words said in the 32nd chapter of Deuteronomy, the 39th verse, I, even I, am he. I kill and I make alive. I wound, I heal. I do all these things, and none can deliver out of my hands. He's playing all the parts. And if one is basically inclined to steal, he will use him to produce the necessary means to get the money to put on the roof. So she comes home, and there was a robbery. All the things have been replaced with the new ones and better ones as she desired them. At the moment, it seemed to be a shock, but she set the whole thing in motion. For she's the one who spoke these words, I kill and I make alive, I wound and I heal, and none can deliver out of my hands. For the Spirit of God and the human imagination are one, and there is nothing but God. All things were made by him. And without him, nothing, not anything made that was made. And also, if all things are made by him, if there, no, is there a thief in the world? Well, he's playing his part. Is there a so-called hero in the world? He's playing his part. A coward? He's playing his part. He is playing every part in the world, and it all adds up to produce the unseen imaginal act of men. So you are alone and you think, no one sees me, and this means nothing. It's only my imagination. And you carry on your lovely imaginal act. And so, that's it. Not knowing that you are actually producing tomorrow's effects in this world. And when it comes into the world, that natural effect has an unseen, invisible, imaginal act as cause, and not a natural cause. A natural cause only seems. It is a delusion. A delusion of what? Of your fading memory. You don't remember when you did it. So when confronted with your own harvest, you can't quite believe it. You can't remember when you did anything that could actually be like this. I didn't rob myself. I never thought for one moment of robbery to get the money. No, but I did see the whole thing done. And there are thieves in the world, all over the world, and they are all played by God. There's nothing but God. God only acts and is in existing beings or men. Now let me find that actor, because God only acts and he is in all existing beings of men. When well, I am a man. I've got to find that actor, for the thing that I see reflected in the mirror when I shave in the morning is a mask. That persona. Now, who is wearing the mask? I am. You simply say Neville, and I turned around and say, yes, here I am. But who is the being that is there? I am. That's my real name, but the mask is called Neville. But I will say I am Neville. So the wearer of the mask called Neville responds. That being in that mask, behind the mask that no one sees, is God. And now the whole vast Christendom will celebrate this victory of God, that he actually died, literally died. But God's first attribute is mercy. And God turned death into sleep and then rose the sexes to work and to weep. And so all the sexes rose en masse when God died. He buried himself in humanity and died. And then his first attribute, mercy, turned into sleep. That is what Blake meant when he said, eternity exists and all things in eternity, independent of creation, which was an act of mercy. That was the merciful act, to turn death into sleep. And God is dreaming his dream. One day he will awake, and when he awakes, he resurrects. And then he gathers into his own being all his scattered beings, so all are gathered together. When I depart this time, may I tell you, I am taking everything in the universe with me, and when I am lifted up, I will raise all unto me. Read it in the 12th chapter of John. Not one can be left, because all things exist in the human imagination, but it's not raised up until he who is scattered is awakened to unity. And he draws into his own being all that is scattered. So they sing this fall into division, and his action or his resurrection into unity. His fall into the generation of decay and death, and his resurrection or his regeneration into the resurrection from the dead. So when he actually is raised from the dead, he gathers all into his own being, and they are all with him. No matter where he goes, he has the whole vast world raised up. He hasn't left one behind him, but everyone shattered in the world will have a reproduction of that drama in themselves. So What is now being dramatized as a memorial this week? For this is really a memorial. This is simply a great memory, a remembrance of what God has already accomplished. And so they are perpetuating it through Good Friday. Then comes the burial on Saturday. Then comes the resurrection on Sunday. But the whole thing is done. It's all done, only to be repeated in the individual, and then the individual who is seemingly scattered becomes the unit, and he draws his vast world unto himself, and he is resurrected. So the one becomes the many, and then the many become the one. So whenever one is raised, he takes the whole vast world with him, even though it seems to be left behind, and every aspect that seemingly is behind becomes the unit, and then it raises up. So one must be all. That is the story of the Christian mystery. One must be all. So the first cry on the cross, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. And they do not know what they do. They go blindly on under compulsion, executing the unseen imaginal acts of humanity. And they move under compulsion. I told the story, and I was extremely criticized for it by a lady at a dinner party one night when Fred Bales, who is now gone from this world, gave a party at the Ambassador Hotel. And I had told this story about 2 weeks before the one of his great, I would say, contributors who would come and always write a huge big check at the end of the war, or a year, or the end of the month, to keep that going. And she was most critical that night. I didn't feel well that night at all. And she said, you know, I can't quite understand how you could take the platform before an audience of 2,600, 1,000 who could not get in. They were all overflowing at the Fox Wilshire, and tell what you told about your wife. This was my first wife. I told a simple story to explain that everything in this world must be forgiven, no matter what it is. When I met the girl who now bears my name and who is the mother of my daughter, the very first time I met her, I knew she was going to be my wife. Well, she didn't know it, but I knew it. I said to myself, she doesn't know it, but she is going to be my wife. We sailed for Barbados 6 months later, and she met my mother and met my family. She met them all. They all loved her. That was back in 1936. In New York City, because of the archaic law that is now passed, you couldn't get a divorce unless she was insane for 7 years or for adultery, and that's all. The Orthodox Christian churches had sewed the whole thing up so that it made life miserable and made everything simply a burden to all. When I met her, I had just such an entangled background. And here, it's New York City, the most archaic city in the world concerning such laws. I went to bed and slept as though I was happily married to the girl who now bears my name. I did not have any physical emotion with her, just that she was sleeping there and I am here. And it's blissful. I did that for 1 solid week. Then comes a telephone call from the court one morning telling me that I must come down to this federal court on Tuesday morning. Well, I was groggy. It was early in the morning. And in those days, I didn't rise as early as I do now. And so I just said, all right. and hung up. Well, on Tuesday morning that I'm supposed to be there, I made no effort to go there. And about 9:30 the phone rang. It's the court, and they said to me, "You are supposed to be here in court this morning. We meet at 10." And I said, "What on earth? What on earth am I supposed to do or to be in court for?" They said, "Well, it happens that your wife is arrested, and we thought maybe you could throw some light on the reason for her arrest. That's why we're asking you to come down." Well, I wasn't shaved. I simply threw myself into some clothes and off I went in a taxi down to the court. I got there just as they were bringing her in. A man whispered into, there were 3 judges, into one judge's ear that I was in the audience. The judge asked me to take the stand. "You don't have to swear, but will you please take the stand and throw some light on the behavior of your wife? She tells me you have been separated now for almost 14 years. Well, I said, "Yes." "Is it a religious reason why you have been separated?" I said, "No, none whatsoever. We know we were wrong the very first day we got married. We knew it was completely a failure right away." Then he read, then he read the case. She was picked up for shoplifting. They went to her home and found other things in her home. He said, "What can you say for this?" I said, "As far as I'm concerned, I don't think that really she's a shoplifter. As far as I'm concerned, she just moved under compulsion. Take into consideration her age. She's 8 years my senior, and she is passing through a certain emotional state. And to be lenient, do be lenient. We have a son who lives with me, and I don't want anything to happen to his mother that would cast any shadow on his life. He's a wonderful boy. He's in my charge by law. He is in my home, lives with me, and I don't want anything to happen to her that in any way would reflect upon my son." Well, the judge said, "You know, in all my years on the bench, I have heard no plea by one for another who has every reason in the world to get her committed, because that in any other state would be enough for a divorce. And yet he pleads for her. He sentenced her to 6 months. And then on my plea, he suspended it. She met me on the outside and said, 'Neville, that was a very decent thing to do. Give me my papers.' She knew I was looking for her. My dancing partner had told her I was looking for her to serve the papers and therefore to be scarce and move out of New York City. So she did. But she had to commit the act. And they had to call me and ask me to throw light upon that. How could I condemn her? Who was the actual cause of her shoplifting? I slept as though I were blissfully married to the girl who now bears my name, and I had to get the evidence. I had to get some reason to bring the action, and here my wife actually gave me the papers. I said, "I don't have the papers with me." She said, "I'm driving home to your place right now, and you can give me the papers." That is illegal, to serve your own papers. But she drove up to my hotel where I was living. I went to my room and came down to the lobby and gave her the papers. I did my own serving. Now, that is an illegal thing in this world. Then I got my divorce in the city of New York. Then I could marry the girl who now bears my name. When I told that, I told it only to tell people of that one word, the first word on the cross: Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. They are all moving under compulsion, and the unseen causation is hidden from the world. They do not know who is treading in the winepress. And I was treading in the winepress to be happily married to a girl who was not then engaged to me. I couldn't be engaged to her under the circumstances. And then my wife behaved in such a manner that it made it real and natural for me to do what I did. How could I blame her? So the first word on the cross: Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. They have to do what they do. I had I had to fall into division and fragment my being into the unnumbered parts called humanity, and then rose into unity and gather all my scattered members together and rise at God as God Himself. That is the story. It is God who fell and God who rises. So I know from my own experience that nothing dies. Those who have not had the experience here, all right, they're all restored in a world that is terrestrial just like this. And they continue their journey until that moment in time when they're resurrected. And resurrection is resurrection in unity. And the outside world, the whole vast universe, it's Himself pushed out, is gathered together then. And they move up. And when I am lifted up from the earth, I will draw all men unto me. See it? This is the mystery of which we speak here night after night. You are not some tiny little thing just pushed out. You are the whole. One must be all. And the day will come, you will find that you really are the all. So not one person in the universe could be outside of you when you are resurrected, because as you are raised up, you raise all men with you. And each will have the experience of being raised up, and eventually will be the one. And in that day, they shall be done. His name one, as we are told in Zechariah. But Blake tells it so beautifully in his dream of 9 nights called Vala, or the 4 Zoas. And then he tells the story of falling into division. And when they are all scattered together, this one man they call Jesus. And in Him, they are in Him, and He in them. They live in perfect harmony in Eden, the land of life. When you are the Lord Jesus Christ, whose resurrection they are going to celebrate this coming Sunday, you then tell that to the priest, and they will slap you, or tell that to any minister because they are sound asleep. You do not know who the Lord Jesus Christ is. I tell you, the Lord Jesus Christ is buried in you, and He is your own wonderful human imagination. That's the Lord Jesus Christ. And when He is raised in you, you will raise all in this universe within you. That is the story. So I want to thank my friend for sharing with me her experience and being big enough to remember. If man could only remember his imaginal acts, she remembered when the roof needed repairs or a new one and the cost was excessively high for them at the moment. So she remembered her husband complaining about the pain the new shoes caused and the weight of the tape recorder, and then working on the machine, the sewing machine, and it was adequate. It was good, but she would like a new one. And then came out of nowhere a robbery and took all these movable objects, and then came the insurance, and that sent the check for 2,000 odd dollars that replaced all the movable parts and paid for the new roof with much left over. So she can actually say, "Forgive them, Father, those who took it. Did they not do her a favor? And yet they're thieves in their own eyes and thieves in the eyes of society." And they are. Do you know who played the part? God. And do you know who actually made them do what they did? The lady who wrote the letter. Now, she knows the words in the 32nd chapter of Deuteronomy. I, even I, am he. And there's no God beside me. I kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal. And there is none that can deliver out of my hand. So, no matter what happens, if we only had the memory, we could trace it to a forgotten, imaginal act on our part. Do you hear what he's saying to you tonight? He's saying to you, what do you want? What do you want? That's what Neville is saying to you tonight. And it unfolds in a way that we don't know. If you notice, even though perhaps she was robbed, they were not home, so no harm came to them. You understand, the law does not bring about harm. It doesn't. So here she is, wanting this new roof, this new sewing machine, this new recorder. And she said in her mind's eye, well, those things are mine. They're mine. So the thief had to play his part. And again, as you notice, he did not play a violent part. He didn't. He went when she wasn't home so that he could scoop it up. But then here comes along her insurance that says, you're fully covered. And you're fully covered for this amount. That's what's happening here. Proof that the law works. Proof that the law works. I'm discovering something. I've never liked rituals. Ever. Because a ritual is a force. You're forcing it to happen. You're pushing it to happen. But the law makes it simple for us to become that which we say we are. Let me give you an example. I was watching The Defenders on, not Marvel, but DC. And they were seeking immortality. So they did everything man could do. Listen to me. They did everything that man could do. And they walked around and said, we have defeated death. Yet, every time they have to do a ritual to maintain their immortality. But what does the law say to you? The law says, you are already immortal. That's what it's saying to you. Which means you are already what you want to be. That's what it's telling us day in and day out. So we don't have to force things. If you want a deeper spiritual experience, you know what you want. Assume that you have a deeper spiritual experience. Just assume that you do, and it happens incrementally. But when you force something by way of ritual, dancing naked in the moonlight, when you do that, what are you saying? You're saying, man, I don't have anything. I'm just going to remain as I am. Then in actuality, the law says to you and I, this is not magic. This is deliberate creation. So name what you want to experience. That's what the law is telling us day in and day out. So you see, the proof is in the pudding. You just take a moment to say what it is that you want, and it unfolds. But when you say, I must have this thing at all costs, you are forcing it. The law doesn't need to force a single thing. So that's why we've got to get past this and know the proof is in the pudding. The law works. It just does. And you don't have to fight. You don't have to claw. You don't have to do any of those things. You just get the opportunity to say what it is that you want to be. That's what you get to do. That's the proof that the law works. Because sometimes we feel like, oh, I can't do this on my own. But if you say to yourself, listen, the law works every time, you'll find that it shows up. And just like the robber, he had to play his part. He had to play his part. Because think about it, that really was the path of least resistance. How so? Because she knew what she wanted and they didn't have the money. They didn't have it. But they just knew what they wanted. And they followed through. See, the law works at every turn, good, bad, or indifferent. Because that is the beauty of the law itself. Always. That's why she could forgive the robber. Why? Because he was only playing his part. Why? How? Under compulsion. Remember earlier today we spoke about treading in the winepress. You're just stomping grapes, and then your mind begins to wander. That's what happened. The thief had to play his part, and that's why, because she remembered. Some people don't remember what it is they say that they want. And because they don't remember, they don't recognize their harvest when it comes in. Can you imagine? He had the audacity to walk in there and take the things she needed replaced. How did he know to take them? He was compelled. That's what happened. So today, the proof is right there. You can say what you want, but until you test it out for yourself, how are you going to know? How are you going to put those two pieces together? How are you going to recall the fact that you said, I would like a radio, the recorder. I would like that my husband not have shoes that pinch. She knew what she wanted, and she stayed the course. And the fact that the robber said, I have a desire to rip somebody off. That desire came from within him. It was something he was compelled to do. So he had to follow through. And he just happened to be the robber that was closest. Right? He was the robber that was closest. So he showed up to get the job done. Nobody was hurt. Nobody. Because they weren't there. That concludes tonight's lecture. Simply know what you want and put yourself right in it. Because something unfolds, and it's usually the thing that is closest to you at that time. Because remember, you are paying attention, right? It's like the thing that you want, the effect that comes about is the closest thing to you that will fulfill your destiny. The path of least resistance. That robber just happened to be in the neighborhood when he saw what he saw and got the inclination to say, ooh, I'm finna steal something. So that's why Neville asked you, who initiated that robbery? She did. She initiated the robbery. Deliberately. Because she said, here are the things we need. And then she said, well, there are ours. And she just let it be. And he just happened to be, remember, it's not a coincidence, right? The cause was replace these things. The effect is, oh, snap. Well, ain't that pretty? That's shiny. Let me go get it. That is the lecture for tonight. So you see, it doesn't matter what it is you're building or that you're creating. Let it unfold. It's not going to be in a way that is harmful to you. It was an inconvenience to have their place broken into. It was a major inconvenience. But if you do notice, they were not at home. So it appears as if somebody's looking out for them. Again, that robber just happened to be in the vicinity. I use just happened as parentheses. It just happened. When in actuality, she said, we need these things. So that's the lecture tonight. Shea Butter, Stepping with Faith, Marjorie, and for the others who've not made yourselves known here on YouTube and Twitter, I see you. Here's something for you, though. Don't be afraid. Remember her story. Remember the fact that she was inconvenienced by a robbery. She was inconvenienced, but she lost things, not her life. So even though we may be inconvenienced by something, how did she know where to apply the money? How did she know? She knew because she remembered what she needed. I think this one is more for me than it is for you, this lecture tonight. But that's for another day. Know that everything is working out beautifully for you. And listen, the law is never going to put you in harm's way. But it will compel everybody to play their part. So there's a couple things that stand out. Everybody will be compelled to play their part. But seek to remember when you planted the seed. Remember when you planted the seed. Remember when you said, well, I need a new roof, honey. Remember that. Remember that. So you see what we learned tonight? Know what you want. And there's so many things in this lecture. She wanted a recorder because the one she had was bulky and heavy. So she just wanted a lighter one. You see how she didn't judge it and say, but this one works beautifully. My sewing machine is adequate. It doesn't really need to be replaced. It's not broken. But she just wanted what she wanted because she wanted it without justification, without judgment. So allow this lecture to show you Romans 8:28. All things work together for good for those that love the Lord. Let it remind you of that. 3 things. I start with 3, but they stand out the most. Know what you want. Don't complain about it. Don't fret. You notice how the husband said, man, that's $1,000. And she was like, and? She was like, it's $1,000 and you notice how she stressed in her letter, so much more money was left over. She got a brand new machine, a brand new sewing machine. So we learned that she knew what she wanted. She didn't judge it. And 2, we learned that everybody, don't get it twisted, you are under compulsion as well. Because somebody's out there talking whatever they're talking, and then you, quote unquote, all of a sudden have a desire to act. See how beautifully the law unfolds? And then the robbery ensued, but she was never in any harm's way. Ever. So be reassured this wee hours of the night that you know what you want, and everybody who is required to play their part, because you'll play yours as well, will come forward and they will play their role. So if that means that person's got to argue with you, cuss you, it doesn't matter. They're playing a role. And that's why we also learn point number 4, forgive. Because these people are under compulsion and they don't know. They don't know. They just act according to the compulsion. And that is the lecture for tonight. Let me flip over here. Vashon and Jenny, that deal and Marquise. I trust you found it helpful tonight, because you have the opportunity to flip backwards through your life and look at a situation. And when you see that something happened, always do your best to remember that you planted the seed. It's not random. It's not by chance. You planted that seed. That's why that thing showed up. So do your best to remember your role that you played, so that when you see the thing, you can say, oh, snap. Here's my solution. The insurance money was the solution. So you see how beautiful the law is? Oh, the law works all right, but you have to test it for yourself. Just like she said, notice how her husband, we can't afford that. So you see how natural it is to say, I can't do it. See how natural that is? But rise to the occasion to say, I know I feel like I can't do it, but according to law, I can do anything if I believe. So I don't know if I believe 100%, but help me to believe it. Who are you talking to? Who are you asking? What did Neville say? Your God? God and imagination are one. So it doesn't matter. Let's not get discouraged about wanting to change our lives and thinking it is difficult. Everybody required, once you make that decision, everybody who's going to play their role will come along and assist you. Not because you need the assistance, but because there's 8 billion people on the planet and many hands make light work. This is the beauty of the law. And this is the proof that it works. So the only thing standing between you and the fulfillment of your desire is, do you believe it? Do you believe that it is possible? What does the scripture say? Whatsoever you pray for, believe that you have received, and you will receive it. So that does not just mean material things. Notice that a desire is born from need. They needed a new roof. So clearly, what would the desire be? A new roof. Did they have to go looking? Nope. They just recognized. Did she have to go looking? Nah, she got tired. Her poor little hands. She goes, Lord, this is so heavy. Take this burden from me and give me a new light one. And she's like, well, my machine served me well, but I need an upgrade. Let me upgrade you, right? That's what she wanted, was the upgrade. Only because she wanted it. So, apply it tonight. What will you apply? Know what you want. Assume that you have it. Feel the relief of having it. And just let it go. and remember what you did. Remember what you, quote unquote, prayed for, so that when you see something arise, you will see the opportunity in it that answers the prayer. That is what we apply, and how we apply it, and why we apply it. And so you see, my beautiful friends, we are always successful. So I will see you on the morrow. Rest well, and as you fall asleep tonight, in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, what is it that you want? You have a need that is pressing. Remember, it always comes up as a need. It shows itself as a need. You know, your stomach growls, you need food. You don't got to go looking for food. You don't have to go looking for anything. So with your head on that pillow, what is that need that is most pressing? Acknowledge it and assume that it is done. Shoot, you wouldn't have the need if you weren't going to get the solution to fulfill the need. You listen, it's cause and effect. You can't get a need and not the fulfillment of it. They go together. So remember what you've prayed for. I love you. See you on the morrow. That deal and Miss Deborah on Fanbase. I'll see you on the morrow. YouTube, Shea Butter, Stepping with Faith, Marjorie. And for the others, I don't know who the others are. They haven't told me who they are, but I don't think I need to say it to you again, because I know how that's how I'm falling asleep tonight. That's how I'm falling asleep tonight. In that state of the wish fulfilled. Know what you want, because the need is there. It's that pressing need you got. Don't push it to the side anymore. I just told you I wasn't going to tell you again, but here we are. You know what it is. So assume that you have it and feel the relief of having it. If you can't feel the relief, ask for assistance. Help me to feel relief, because I know what the law says. So help me to feel relief. And you'll feel the relief. And then remember what you have prayed for, so that when you see the fulfillment of it, you will grab it and say, gotcha. or in the words of Dave Chappelle, gotcha, bitch. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I know. But I love you. I love you. And I will see you on the morrow. YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.